Hi everyone, Unity is back with more games from the 2013 British Championships, and now I'm going to go straight to board 11 from board 10 to show you what turned out to be actually Andrew Martin's game of the day. So along with the Jones v Reed game, this is not the only game you can find. This is not the only commentary you can find, but of course mine will provide a different insight. Rather than inside of an IM, you'll see it inside of a Patzer. But I'm amped by my 3200 silicon friend, Rybka, or more like Qd2. Anyway, this game is Shawn Tavares v Yang-Fang Zhou. You both saw him in round 1. As we know, Shawn Tavares is a very strong Nc3 Bg7 player, 2178, and Yang-Fang Zhou, the rising star of English chess, at 2469, and could be the next Nigel Short. But anyway, let's get on with the game. Shawn has white, Yang-Fang has black, and we're going to see Yang-Fang's favourite King's Indian, but with a few twists. Is this? Now he actually decides to preface d6 and castle straight away, and there was a famous game between Fischer and someone else, where someone played e5 against Fischer, and they just moved all the pawns in the centre, and Fischer just completely undermined them, and they finished with a nice queen sack. And the game is famous because it is also King's Crush's first ever video was on that game, out of the 2,000,052 videos he's done since. F3 was played instead. This is the Simish variation. White aims to protect his e4 pawn, eliminating any knight g4 opportunities, and the main point of it is to play bishop e3, knight e2, queen d2, castle queenside, and just throw the kingside pawns, like a sort of Yugoslav attack against a dragon. And black will try and get counterplay by either knight h5 and f5 or c6 to blast open files on the queen side after playing e5, and white will play d5. It's a very sharp system. The main move is to play d6. White can either play bishop e3, bishop g5 or knight g2. A sample line is bishop e3, e5, d5 and then knight h5, clearing the path for the f pawn, etc. And if white plays queen d2, then you can just play knight f4 anyway. You can. Or if I can play queen h4 check in this position, g3. After knight takes g3, white can play queen h2, and black actually sacks his queen with knight takes f1, queen takes h4, knight takes c3. And after white deals with the fork, say by moving his king or something, black takes a c4 pawn, and black has 2 bishops and 2 pawns for the queen in a solid position, and the line has been played with some success. That's just one example of how sharp the Simish gets. Simish queen sack line. Another sample line is d6, bishop e3. This gambit with c5. I think if white pushes, black gets quite a good Benoni position, and if white accepts it, then black gets some good compensation. He gets a nice open diagonal for his king's Indian bishop. He gets control of the d file and d4 pressure, and white's development is very lagging. And despite the queen's come off, black has ongoing compensation in this position. Even though Roman Dishinashvili, I think, has found a reputation, or a sort of reputation anyway. But I've not played the Simish for a long time, so I've sort of forgot a lot of the theory. So I'll go game now, because Yang-Fang plays knight c6, and basically he's trying to get a panel position, but with the pawn on d7, which provides some extra options. The panel usually would go d6, bishop e3, knight c6, with white plays d5 and black gets a good position if I put his knight in. And interestingly enough, if white plays knight g2 in this position, after knight c6, bishop e3, e5, if white plays d5, white just sticks his knight on d4 anyway, I think. Well, I'm not sure it's actually this. Actually, that's wrong right that. I think it's if let's try knight g2. I think basically there's a line where black just sticks his knight on d4. There isn't. You don't mind losing the pawn, but it's not that one. I have to look up for yourselves. But anyway, knight c6 was chosen. So yeah, trying to get a panel with the pawn on d7, and white can try and kick the knights like Alekhine style, and then knight b4, a3, knight a6, and b4 or something. In fact, no, as now is knight takes e4, and then you develop his pieces. But black's plan is to play c6, e6, and just undermine white's centre as much as possible, and this is quite a modern idea. Now, I'm not sure if white was out of book or not, but he just decides to decline the challenge, and we get this panel position where e5, d5, yeah, this is the one I meant, the knight comes into d4, and if white tries to win a pawn with knight d4, e4, queen d4, black has the standard trick, knight e4, where queen e4 loses to rook e8, and that nabs an important pawn, and otherwise, and then white's just going to drop the c3 as well, which is very bad. So he plays bishop e3, c5, and now here's the point of appealing the pawn on d6. After d takes c6, if black plays b takes c6 and d6, we transpose to a main line of the panel when the Simish, but it takes with the d pawn. Very interesting. And now white decides to win a pawn, but he actually takes the wrong piece. He should be taking with the bishop in this position, which has been played before. After knight takes e4, bishop takes g7, queen h4 check. Now white has to play g3. After knight takes g3, you can chuck in this intimate, so a bishop f6, which actually wins a piece. This is a computer line, this I think Martin mentions in his video. Knight e2, queen takes f6, h6 g3, and queen takes f3. And in this position, black's got two pieces for the pawns for the piece and an ongoing initiative. But queen takes d4 was played, which looks logical to try and get the queens off, but now knight d5 is played, which blocks the queen swap, and the knight is immune to the queen being on prise, so the queen goes back, and now knight takes c3, queen takes c3, bishop e6, and this opening has been very good for black, where he's got a massive compensation for the pawn. My silicon friend, which is notoriously materialistic, says his position is slightly better for black. Black has two raking bishops in open position. White is glossy dark square bishop, which is very bad usually in the Simish. Usually if you allow knight takes c3, usually positionally bust. So if white was not a pawn up, he'd be lost in this position. Black has controlled the d line, and after white swings his rook across to d1, queen a5 was played, which is natural, but queen b6 is actually a strong move. If white plays queen takes b6, a takes b6, you might think this sounds a bit stupid because white's the pawn down, so why is he offering the queen swap? Sorry, black's the pawn down. He's also doubling his pawns. But if black is allowed to play bishop c3, bc3, rook a2, then he'll just be better because white will have double pawns and not be a pawn up. And if white plays rook d2, there's a beautiful move, rook a3, where taking is bad because of bishop c3. And after rook a8, white can't defend his a3 point. Has to play rook a1, and he's just completely tied down, and black can improve the position at will. And after rook a3, what else does white do? Because the c3 knight is attacked. If after queen b6, white plays queen f2, then we play queen a5, and we've got an improved variation because there is a threat now on the knight. So that was a slight improvement. Bishop e2, queen b4, and white decides to give his pawn back, and then plays e5 to shut black's bishop out of the game and keep his knight protected. And now the game gets very sharp. Queen goes back to b4 because the queen was out of play on that square, and is vulnerable potentially to rook b1 takes b7. f4, trying to get a counter attack. Rook fd8, cross in the d line. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook b1, skewering the queen to the pawn. Queen a3 is played, and black's plan is to try and get around the back. And if rook takes b7, which also threatens rook takes a7, black has to move bishop f8, a very sneaky move, getting his bishop back into the game and threatening bishop c5, which is very hard to meet. So white plays rook b3, queen a6, and now plays knight e4, which is a very good move because it aims at the dark squares around black's king, and also stops bishop f8 to c5, which would of course win the white queen, and shows another example of how losing the dark square bishop can be very bad for white. Queen takes a2 was played, rook takes b7, bishop c4, So white is actually now black is actually pawn up all of a sudden, but white certainly has counterplay. Bishop comes to f3 because white is not interested in the bishop exchange, because that'll weaken his control of the squares around his king. And now a5 is played, because the thing is, if you pawn up, you might as well make sure you make its presence felt. Now knight d6, the knight comes into a very good square. The bishop f8 to try and swap it off. And now knight back to e4. So there is potential for a repetition in this position, but of course black is a very strong IM, and he also is better in this position as a pawn up, and white's not really got any threats, so accepting the draw would be a bit suicidal. It's a quest to win the championship, but with that I'd say Yang-Fang's probably aiming to win the championship, potentially, because I think he's underrated. I think he's a good 25-50 at least. Queen a1 check, king f2, and now I think bishop b4 is actually the very strong move, which threatens to get in. I think white's almost lost now. So he plays h3 to get this h2 square for his king in some lines. Rook d3, this check's pretty harmless. The king just comes back to h8, and then say knight f6. Then black can just throw his check in, force white's king out, and then in fact black has him with bishop e1, queen takes e1, queen takes b7, and black's on material. I mean, white gets his pawn back, but black should win an exchange up. Queen f1 check was played, which forces white's king to the open, and now the move rook d3 is played, which is natural, but is actually a blunder. If black wants to win, he needs to play something like bishop back b4 again. But after rook d3, knight f6 check, king g7, there's a beautiful resource of white in this position. If you want to try and spot it, please stop the video now. White missed the astonishing move e6, which actually forces at the end of it black to take a perpetual. If rook takes e3, then black is mated by rook takes f7 check, nice little queen sack where wherever the king goes, say h6 or h8, there is a nice Arabian mate. So the queen's immune, and if the pawn is taken, then black just takes the bishop if it's pinned. And now white's a piece up, so black has to sack his exchange on f3, and he gets a perpetual check out of it, but nothing more. Wherever the king goes, say h3 or queen f1, all the squares are just drawn. If he tries running this way, there's just no way to avoid the draw. So it's perpetual. And that of course would be a very good draw for white, but that is a very difficult move to see. I mean, Yang-Fang must have missed it as well, otherwise he wouldn't have played rook d3. But instead he plays knight e8 check, and now it's complete winning for black after king a6. White's run out of attack, and he plays queen b6, but now his pieces are too far away, and now bishop b4, a very nice move. And white is completely lost all of a sudden. h3 is played. And now bishop f1 check is just a forced mate. Bishop e1 check is actually a forced mate. King h2. And now rook takes f3, g takes f3, queen e2 check. And now wherever the king goes, if king g1, we've got bishop g3, and white's got no check, so we can't stop the mate threats. And if the king tries running this way, we have queen takes f3. Bang. He plays c5 instead, which is winning, but it's not actually a forced mate. And now the queen f6, of course, black has to act fast, otherwise he's going to get mated himself on g5. But of course, combination to finish off is rook takes f3 check, and if the rook is taken, then Again, like losing that dark square bishop early on in the game is pretty fatal because he can't control his dark squares. And of course, so Black has trying to avoid it by playing King H2 with the theory that he's threatening mate himself. But of course now comes rook takes H3 check, so rook just gets sacked again. Gh3 is mated by Queen F2 and King Bishop D5, which also wins a rook as well in the process, but the king is more important. And he takes the rook the king, but now I've got check, King G3, Bishop E1, King F3, Queen F1 check. And white resigned because wherever the king goes, there is a mate. If King E4, we have Queen takes G4, which also skewers the king and rook, but wins the king. King G4 is Queen G2. That'll be like mate for white. That mate. And King E3 is that mate. So white throws the towel in this position. But that was an incredibly sharp game. And if only white had seen that resource. But it's very difficult to see. And both players played very well. And that game rightly deserved Game of the Day award. And I'm sure two very dynamic players. So I'm sure we'll see more games of them over the course of this series. For now, I hope you enjoyed this game with some interesting new ideas in the King's Indian, and please leave in the comments some thoughts. Thanks very much.